Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Horror Comics issue number 1. This looks just like the old eerie comics. The dressing, the whole setup, everything. It looks like you could just have the chick's head with the axe over here, and just like all of a sudden the sequel to what's it called, Seduction of the Innocent comes up because Comics Code Authority, we need it. Anyway, this is out of Antarctic Press. This is good. Bradley Golden actually sent this. This I bought. This is my money. All right. He sent me a digital copy and asked me to review it. I am sick this week. I couldn't make heads or tails of almost anything most of the week. So I did not give you that early one. I saw that Economics in Comics was able to do an early one. So by all means, this is after the buzz is already hit. Apparently it's already sold out in Midtown Comics and a few other places. So if you can get your hands on this, stop the video, go grab it right now. Don't put stuff on eBay. That's not cool. That's not polite. Anyway, let's get talking about who made this comic book. I do have a problem with this comic book. I will explain that a little bit later. Horror Comics presents Cold Blooded Part 1. The writer and the editor is Bradley Golden. Pencils, Audrey Lunatic. I love that name. What I also love is that Mickey Clausen does the inks and colors. I have never seen someone who does the inks and the colors specifically, so that's cool. Mickey Clausen on that. Hector Negrete, hope I didn't butcher his name, but he didn't necessarily butcher the letters or the design. Cover by Helmut Rancho and variant cover David Hutchison. So this is basically, it's called Cold Blooded. It's about a local ice cream man who is beloved by all of the neighbors in this town, and he makes his own homemade ice cream in his actual home. And you already know what's about to happen in this comic book because, wow, this is not a campy comic book at all. This reminds me more of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre than like Friday the 13th. There are no jump scares in this. It's that slow creeping horror element where you're just like, oh my God, this is like watching Hostel as opposed to watching The Grudge. You know what I'm saying? What do you call it? This you already get the sense of what's about to happen in this comic book, and it does, and it just keeps on happening. And then when you think there's going to be a bit of a reprieve, it gets worse, and you expected it. This is that book where if you're watching it in the movie form, you just look up at the movie screen and you're like, girl, don't you go in that house. Nope, she deserves whatever's about to happen. Like, that's this book. That's what this book does. This is a fun book, even though it's horror. You know what I'm saying? I can imagine this just getting progressively more bloody, more dangerous, more, don't let your kids see this. Don't hand this to your kids, man. Even if they were bad, they didn't eat all their peas at separate time. Don't do that, man. Don't do that. I did say I have a problem with this book, though. All right? The problem that I have with this book, as I may have mentioned, is that the writer and the editor is Bradley Golden. Bradley reached out to me, asked me to do this early, couldn't. I was sick. Economics and Comics. He did an early video of this. I don't know who else may have done an early video of this, so, you know, cool. But besides the fact that Bradley didn't send me any test pictures, I'm supposed to go through and try and figure out how to get a PDF to download like a copy, like 3 images or so of this. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So I'll just crack this puppy open. I'll show you a couple of the pages inside. And it happens to be a particularly bloody one. So there you go. Yeah, I don't like flipping through comic books. That's not my style. I like to actually have the pages to scroll up and, comment for the future. Please add pages that I can preview the comic book with. That being said, the problem that I have with the book is that Bradley Golden, who's a really nice guy, he's the editor and the writer of the comic book. There were 2 grammatical errors. I am Professor Bill for a reason, not just a professor of comics. That's just me being silly. No, I'm actually a former university professor who taught English as a second language. Yeah, I read it like my red pen was just like, it's a horror comic. It's a horror comic. And it was there were two glaring grammatical errors. A word missing. It was right away you might want to say, oh, the letterer's fault. Okay, sure. But you also have to go back to the editor. And since the book is written in the voice of Bradley Golden, it is evident to me that is the reason why he didn't see it in his proof, because that is not editing, that's proofreading at that point. So if I had to make and I will, a comment about the comic book that I didn't like, that is it. You cannot be a good editor on a book that you wrote. You simply cannot. It's like critiquing your own art. No, we like to say that we're our own worst critics, but it's not really true, is it? So Bradley Golden, the writer and proofreader of his own work, which we should all proofread our own work, there was no proper editor on this book, and that's why that happened. Could the book have been better still if there was an editor? Maybe. I know that I don't usually cite the editor of a book, but a situation like that, it precludes the idea that, in fact, a book can be better with proper editing. Go and check out my review of Jim Shooter. No, go check out my interview with Jim Shooter and the panel that he did. He talks about how editors do have a major role in the creation of a comic book. And just at least in those 2 grammatical errors, it shows on the comic book. The comic isn't perfect, specifically for that reason. And also, I am sick, and also I don't usually get into horror comic books. But that being said, I genuinely enjoyed this. And if you can still find a copy, sorry guys, I was a little late doing this review. If you can find a copy, then go and find that copy. And you can see one of the other 2 covers that came out with this comic book on my This Week in Comics video for this week. I just did a couple days ago, Tuesday that just passed. So enjoy, fun comic book. I enjoyed the hell out of this. This is going in my collection. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.